the traffic of the big city getting you down, the noise of the sirens and life in the GTA. Or maybe you are looking at moving into Canada for the very first time, immigrating here, and you're trying to find that beautiful, peaceful home, the forever home, or your retirement home along a river, or maybe on a beach where you can enjoy life in your home and then head over to the beach. Maybe even view the beach from your front porch, but still stay here in Canada. Well, you're lucky that you stopped by in today's video, because that's what we're talking about today. And that is the city of Fort Erie. It's picturesque life along the Niagara River and Lake Erie, and all that Fort Erie has to offer all of its inhabitants, which may be you one day. Not only are we going to look at all the beautiful aspects and pros of living here in Fort Erie, but also the cons. Because maybe Fort Erie isn't the place for you. And that's what today's video is going to be all about. Helping you decide whether Fort Erie here in the Niagara region is for you, or you want to keep looking for someplace else. If this is the first time that you've joined us here on Living in Niagara, thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed today's video, if you find it educational, entertaining, please hit that like button and even subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you might be one of the very first people to hear of anything happening here in the Niagara region. I'm Scott White, and along with my wife Ellen, we make up the realtors of the Living in Niagara with Ellen and Scott team. We get calls all the time from people just like yourself, moving in from the GTA. A lot of people moving in from the GTA. A lot of people looking to find that beautiful pre-retirement or even retirement home. But we don't even only get calls from people from the GTA, but from all over the world, the United States, looking at moving here into Canada and the Niagara region. And if that happens to be you in the next 9 days or 90 days or 9 months, please feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even hit that QR code and set up a Zoom meeting where you can meet Ellen and myself, ask all of your questions that you may want about any city or area here in the Niagara region. And I promise Ellen and I will help you make this transition smooth and stress-free. Let me be honest, living in the Niagara region has a tendency to be a lot less stress than other parts of the world, and especially the big cities like the GTA. So let's sit down and have a talk about the pros and cons of living here in Fort Erie, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll tell you it all. And especially pro number 4, you're going to want to hear how that works out into a con as well. And like always, if you stick around to the very end of today's video, I'm going to introduce you to a special local gem, a place that has a place in my heart from when I was a kid growing up here. So let's go get into the very first pro of living here in Fort Erie. And I'm here, the picturesque beauty of living in the Niagara region. I call it the Niagara lifestyle. We have the Niagara River. Fort Erie is right on the mouth of the Niagara River, where Lake Erie enters into this great and majestic river. Which brings me to the other part of this beautiful, picturesque part of living in Fort Erie, and that's Lake Erie. Its beaches, its beauty, its tranquility, on a nice day anyway. If you love water life, if you like, I don't know, can you see them out there fishing? If you like fishing, if you like boating, if you like beaches, then Fort Erie might be the place you want to live. Now, I have lived in many parts of Canada, North America. I grew up here in the Niagara region. I moved out, went to college to Kitchener. Then I lived a bit in Saskatchewan, in Kindersley, Saskatchewan, if you know what that is. Even outside of Detroit, Texas, Mexico City, Barrie, Hamilton, and the last place was Bradford before Ellen and I moved back here a couple of years ago to the Niagara region. And you know what? I didn't really realize what I had growing up until I moved back here. The lifestyle, the living in the Niagara region, there is just something about it that no place else that I've ever lived has this scent, this feeling, this beautiful nature. I call it work-life balance. There really is, for me anyway, a perfect work-life balance here in the Niagara region. that I never experienced in any other city or area that I lived in. Now, Niagara isn't for everybody, and it might not be for you. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, but again, if everybody loved it, it would be overrun with people and maybe lose that vibe. But it is a beautiful, lovely place, gives you a great work-life balance, in my opinion anyway. And Fort Erie is part of that Niagara lifestyle living. So I'm gonna stay here along the river because I love the water, and talk about the rest of the pros and cons of living here in Fort Erie. And one of the greatest pros also is not only the Niagara lifestyle, but also the affordability. All of the Niagara region is affordable. You can look at other videos that we've done in St. Catharines or Niagara Falls, Welland, Port Colborne, Pelham, Niagara on the Lake, and see how affordable houses are here in the Niagara region. In different areas, it's a little more affordable than in others, and Fort Erie is one of the most affordable areas here in the Niagara region. The average home price right now as we make this video is about $480,000. Yeah, that's right. Under $500,000 is the average asking price here in Fort Erie. Currently, we have 418 houses on the market in all of the Fort Erie area. And out of those, over 300 are under $1 million. 140 under $700,000, and almost 100 homes, detached, semi-detached townhouses, and some condos under $500,000. That's right. It is a great place for new immigrants to come into Canada, find affordable houses, or first-time home buyers, or retirees selling their homes in the GTA for $1 million, $1.2 million, $3 million, and coming and living here, right along the Niagara River, or getting under $1 million for a home right along the beach of Lake Erie. And there are even some homes under $700,000 right along the beach. So the affordability of homes is a huge plus and pro for living here in Fort Erie. Another pro that I would classify as a pro is the villages of Fort Erie. We have Fort Erie City, about 20,000 people, 22,000 people in the city of Fort Erie. So those of us who live here in the Niagara region can look at Fort Erie as a city, the gateway city, a border city along Niagara River, adjacent to Buffalo. Talked about that in our neighborhood tour of Fort Erie. But if you look on the map, it's a larger area, and it includes a number of other little villages, unique in their own way. Every one of them has their own charm, their own quality, and we'll be talking about those little villages in a future video under our Rural Niagara series. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to our channel yet, I would suggest you're doing that and hit on the notifications so when we post those new videos, you won't miss them. Villages and villages like Crystal Beach, Ridgeway, Stevensville. They each have their own quality of uniqueness, and they're highly sought after. People are really looking at these areas, and they're growing in their own right. Nicer areas in many ways than the city of Fort Erie, a little bit further away from the border, and each one of them given their own, as I said, quality, which I think is a pro to living here in Fort Erie. Gives you options. You can live in the city, you can live in one of these little villages or towns and still be close to all the proximity of the city of Fort Erie or Port Colborne or even Buffalo, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. This is a big one. It is both a pro and a con, and it is huge for the Fort Erie area. I've talked about it in our vlog. I mentioned it in the very beginning of our video that you're not going to want to miss, this pro and con, and that is right across the river there is the United States. In our vlog video tour, I talked a lot about Buffalo and the amenities that Buffalo has to offer. The residents of even Fort Erie, major city with all the major amenities, professional NFL football, arts, culture, all those things, and shopping. So those are all pros of living here in Fort Erie on the gateway of coming into Canada from the United States. But there's also a significant con. for living so close to the United States and Buffalo. I know some of you guys are going to be talking about the political, socio-economic, political aspects of what's going on between Canada and the United States, but historically our relationship with the States has been fantastic, and it is usually a joy and pleasure to live so close to the States, being able to cross the border with relative ease. And I believe and trust that it will return someday soon. But even when things are good, there is a significant impact that Buffalo in the United States has here on Fort Erie that isn't felt in most cities in Canada or Ontario, profoundly felt here in Buffalo. Take, for example, just the border itself adds traffic. The Peace Bridge can get backed up, and that backup can cause gridlock within the town and city as well, along Highway 3, the QEW, and routes going in and out. People coming across the border, trying to find some place, traveling into Fort Erie, getting out off the beaten path. That is one complaint that a lot of residents make about living so close to that border. Not only that, you have a sense of being watched. Because you're so close to the border, there's a lot of border security, border patrol officers, and there's cameras all over the place around the border. And so a lot of residents feel like Big Brother is always watching them, more so here in Fort Erie than in many other places. So those are some of the adverse effects of living so close to the border. And also the economy is kind of boom and bust here in Fort Erie. There's a lot of pressure on the dollar. How well the dollar is doing can dictate how well the city of Fort Erie is doing. How well our trade is going can have an effect very significantly to life in Fort Erie. Those are things that a lot of people thinking of moving to Fort Erie don't think of, don't mention, don't realize. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about that as a con of moving into Fort Erie. I want to make sure that you are aware of those things so that you can make the very best decision that you can make for yourself if you're thinking or considering making a move and buying a home here in Fort Erie. Another con of living in Fort Erie is the crime rate. Again, I hate to talk about crime rates when they're not stellar crime rates. And I'm not saying that Fort Erie is an unsafe place to live. It is a safe place to live. According to Area Vibes, it is still 26% lower than the national crime rate average. It is a little higher, just 1%, 2% higher than the Ontario average, and a little bit higher than the Niagara region. And that has a lot to do with con number one, the close proximity to the border. It's kind of funny to think that we have a lot more, significantly more police presence and security presence because of being so close to the border and having the border security watching the area as well, and still having a higher crime rate. But sadly enough, that's the issue. And it's mostly significantly petty crime. People breaking into your car at night or opening doors, checking things out, that type of crime. Not physical or major crime, just that petty crime stuff. And once again, it is usually isolated in certain areas of Fort Erie. So once again, I say, if you're looking at moving into Fort Erie, please reach out to Ellen and myself. We know the area like the back of our hands, born and raised in this area, and we can help you stay away from those more crime areas and keep you completely safe. Con number three, I would say, and everyone's gonna say this, is that the lack of amenities. And that goes along with being a small town, a small city. You don't have transportation or very limited transportation. The Niagara region does have a transportation system that helps people move through all of the Niagara region. It's limited. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but I know people using it all the time, and it's there, it's functional. But really, if you're living in Fort Erie, having a car is almost essential. There isn't a whole lot of shopping to be done. There's boutiques and little shops, grocery shops, of course, major grocery stores here. Walmart is here. So there is some of that general everyday shopping plentiful here in Fort Erie. But if you want to do major shopping, go to a mall, you're not going to find one in Fort Erie. You're going to have to go to Niagara Falls for that, where you have to go to the Costco. But the good news is you're not very far away. we talked about the close amenities that you have in Buffalo. Buffalo isn't very far, 15-20 minutes, and you can get all the big shopping and all those things and all those amenities. But right here in Fort Erie, very limited. And the town closes down at nighttime. So if you're looking for nightlife, you're not going to find it here in Fort Erie either, except unless you want to go to bingo. Talked about that before too. When it comes to healthcare, Fort Erie doesn't have a hospital. Currently, there is an urgent care facility in the old Fort Erie Hospital, but in 2028, that urgent care facility is going to close. Unless the city residents can fight that and keep it open, there is a new hospital being built right now in Niagara Falls, 15 minutes away. It's not very far away. So that's not a really big issue in my opinion. If you're living in a major city like Toronto or the GTA or even Hamilton, and you want to get to the hospital quickly, it could take you, depending on where you are and what time and traffic, it could take you 15, 20, even 30 minutes to get there. So you're not going to get much traffic, if any traffic, getting from Fort Erie to the hospital. So it's not that big of an issue, but there is no hospital here in Fort Erie, and the urgent care will be closing in 2028 when the Niagara South Hospital in Niagara Falls, brand new one, is completed. So that could be a factor in your decision whether you want to live here or not, and that's why I share that with you. So that pretty much wraps up our pros and cons. So you know what happened. Grab yourself your coffee, your tea, your favorite drink. Let's jump into the car. I'm going to take you to a local gym. That's one of my favorites. So come on, let's go. Oops, I don't have a boat. I'm gonna have to get in my car. Now, if I had a boat, we could get there by boat, but I have to go to my car. So here we are at today's local gym, the Barrel. I know I've mentioned the Barrel in a previous video. You can go back and look at that, but I didn't mention it as a local gym, and today I wanted to bring our attention and really highlight the Barrel. The Barrel has been here in Fort Erie forever. When I was a young kid, this is where we would come, especially when we were teenagers. We could drive. We would meet here and enjoy a great pizza and pasta and hang out here. So there is a bit of nostalgic here for me as well. That's why I wanted to highlight today the Barrel in today's local gym. And it's still a great hot spot for families and even teenagers. So come on inside. Let's order ourselves up a little lunch and we'll sum up today's video. So here we are in the Barrel at our local gym. The Barrel has some great history here, especially for those of you who are thinking of moving to Niagara region from out of the country. The Kentrose family moved here from the Mediterranean in 1977 with very little resources. In 1981, they opened up their very first restaurant, bringing the recipes and their love for food from the Mediterranean here to Fort Erie. And ever since, they have been a local favorite, a local gem. As I said, I grew up in Port Colborne, and we would come here regularly in the 80s and early 90s to enjoy their food and their fellowship. They became known for not just being a restaurant, but inviting you to their table. Great restaurant for representing the vibe and the feel of a great community here in Fort Erie. So if you find yourself moving to Fort Erie, you know you're gonna have to come out and try and enjoy the Barrel. I want to thank you for stopping by in our video today. I hope the pros and cons were beneficial for you in helping you make the decision whether you want to move to Fort Erie or not. If you want to make this move to Fort Erie, you know what to do. Give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, and Ellen and I will make this a stress-free transition for you. And if you like today's video, we really appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe, and even turn on the notifications. So with no further ado, I'm going to enjoy my Tuscan sandwich here from the Barrel.